The stars were quiet that night, but the silence felt heavy, almost forced. For years, the galaxy had been burning with endless wars, planets reduced to ash, fleets torn apart in battles that left nothing but drifting wreckage. Among the stars, humanity had become both feared and admired. They were the newcomers, the young species, but their resilience and strength had shaken the oldest empires, and now, after so much destruction, the Galaxy Council called for peace. The peace accord was to be signed on a neutral station orbiting a dying red star. Delegations from dozens of alien races gathered there, each dressed in their ceremonial robes, their voices full of promises. They spoke of healing, of ending bloodshed, of building trust. But humanity did not trust so easily. Their representatives stepped off their shuttle in simple uniforms, not ornate, but practical. Their leader, Ambassador Hale, had a calm face, but his eyes scanned every shadow. Behind him, human soldiers stood alert, quiet, their hands never far from their weapons. As the humans entered the grand chamber, whispers filled the hall. Some aliens looked at them with resentment, others with hidden fear. To many, humanity had risen too fast. Their warships had proven too dangerous, their strategies too clever. Peace was offered. But beneath those smiles, hatred still burned. The ceremony began with glowing lights and flowing music from alien instruments. The council's speaker raised his voice, telling the crowd that today would mark the end of war. Yet even as the words echoed, one young human officer, Lieutenant Ramos, noticed something strange in the observation windows. Distant ships shifted slightly in formation, their engines glowing too brightly. It was small, almost invisible, but to a trained human eye, it was a warning. Ramos leaned closer to Ambassador Hale, his voice low. "Sir, the fleet's Aki." Outside, they are moving into attack patterns. Hale did not react openly, his calm face never broke. But his fingers tapped once against the table, a silent code on hidden channels. Human warships orbiting far away received the signal. They powered weapons quietly, shields ready, though to any observer they appeared calm. Inside the chamber, the council speaker continued his speech. He praised the courage of all species. He promised unity. But his words felt too smooth, too polished, like a mask hiding sharp teeth. And as the audience clapped with their strange claws and hands, Hale thought to himself, peace is their word, but betrayal is their meaning. The humans had come prepared. They remembered history. They remembered that every treaty offered to the weak by the powerful came with hidden chains. And so, while other species arrived unguarded, humanity brought firepower waiting in the shadows. The tension grew as the time for signing approached. An enormous table stood in the center, glowing with symbols of unity. Each delegation was to place their mark, a promise of peace. Alien leaders stepped forward one by one, their voices echoing. But when Haley's turn drew near, the whispers grew louder, eyes turned sharp, alien gazes heavy with something darker than curiosity. Ramos felt it again, a chill running down his spine. More ships outside were closing into position. He whispered again, "Sir, they are tightening the net." Hale gave no outward sign, only a faint nod. He stepped toward the table, his hands steady, his voice calm. "Humanity comes to honor peace," he said, but his eyes, sharp as steel, looked into the crowd and saw the hunger for blood hiding behind smiles. And then, a flicker in the chamber's lights, a pause too long, a shadow too deep. The humans knew the trap was almost ready to spring. In that moment, Ambassador Hale thought of Earth. The green forests, the blue oceans, the people waiting far away. He knew this accord was never meant to protect them, but to destroy them. Yet he also knew something else. Humanity had not come to be victims. They had come ready. As the council speaker raised his voice again, calling for the humans to sign, the human warships far beyond the station finished arming their cannons. Crews whispered to each other, hands tight on controls. They waited only for the order. The galaxy thought they had cornered humanity, but the humans were never prey. They were hunters who knew how to fight in the dark. And so, the fragile peace hung like glass about to shatter. No one in that chamber knew just how close war was, except for humanity, who had already chosen. If peace was real, they would embrace it. But if betrayal came, they would answer with fire. And far beyond the red star, the hum of human warships filled the void, quiet, patient, ready. The chamber still glowed with lights of celebration. But for the humans, every spark felt like a warning. Alien leaders clapped their claws and tails together, their voices rising in false joy. Yet behind those smiles, there was a tension, a rhythm too perfect, too practiced. It was as if they were waiting for something. A signal hidden beneath the speeches. Lieutenant Ramos stood near the edge of the hall, his eyes scanning every corner, his heart beat faster, but his training kept his face calm. His visor displayed faint signals leaking from the walls, encrypted transmissions bouncing between fleets outside. The words were hidden, but the patterns were clear. Coordinated movements, silent commands to prepare for war. He leaned closer to a fellow officer, whispering in low tones. "They are talking in secret. This peace accord is no peace at all." The officer gave a faint nod, his hand tightening on the grip of a concealed sidearm. Humanity had expected something like this, but now the proof was almost undeniable. Ambassador Hale sat at the center table, still unmoved, his eyes steady. Alien leaders watched him carefully, their eyes glittering like knives in the dark. They thought humans would sign blindly, trusting in their honeyed words. But Hale had already given the silent order, a code sent through his wristcom, human ships waiting in the void prepared with quiet precision. Outside, the fleets of the so-called peacekeepers shifted again. Warships disguised as escorts opened hidden bays, weapons gleaming faintly in the starlight. The net was tightening around the station, a noose that would close as soon as the accord was signed. But in the blackness further away, human warships spread their wings. They had come not as victims, but as predators watching the trap close around them. Back inside, an alien delegate rose to speak, his voice heavy with false kindness. "We must end these wars. We must lay down arms. Let us show trust. Let us disarm." The chamber echoed with applause, but humans stayed silent, their eyes sharp. The alien's gaze lingered on Hale too long, like a predator watching prey. And then he smiled, a thin, dangerous smile. Ramos felt a chill crawl up his spine. He saw how some aliens shifted in their seats, hands brushing concealed blades. Guards moved closer to humans, but tried to appear casual. It was theater. Every movement planned, every gesture meant to hide the ambush about to unfold. Hale finally spoke, his voice low but clear. "Humanity desires peace, but peace cannot be built on shadows." His words caused a stir. Some delegates stiffened, others hissed in their alien tongues. They were not expecting a challenge. Not here, not now. Suddenly the lights flickered again. A tremor shook through the station's floor. It was slight, but the humans noticed. Outside, massive alien battleships powered up their cores, energy signatures glowing hotter. Inside the chamber, the council speaker forced a smile and raised his hands. "Please, Kantium. Nue, the accords must be signed," he said, his voice smooth but shaking. Ramos's hand twitched, ready to draw his weapon. He caught Hale's eye, and in that silent glance, the truth passed between them. This was no peace. This was the beginning of betrayal. Yet still, Hale stood calm, still smiling, because humanity had prepared for this moment from the start. Far in orbit, human captains checked their targeting locks. Torpedoes slid silently into launch bays. Railguns hummed with energy. Crew members sat with hands steady on controls, waiting only for the word. Their eyes burned with the same fire. The understanding that history was about to shift. The trap was tightening, but the hunters had come ready, and in that chamber of false peace, the humans stood still. Their silence was louder than any applause, their stillness more dangerous than any threat, because while the galaxy believed they were about to destroy humanity, only humanity knew the truth. The first strike of war was already theirs to command. The chamber grew silent as the final moment approached. The peace accord lay on the glowing table, shining with symbols of unity. Alien leaders leaned forward, their hands hovering above the surface, ready to sign, but the air felt heavy, thick with tension, as if the walls themselves were waiting to close in. Ambassador Hale stood slowly, his figure calm but unyielding. Behind him, the human officers straightened, eyes locked on every corner of the room. Lieutenant Ramos felt the sweat on his neck, his instincts screaming that the moment had come. He scanned the alien guards, their fingers twitching near concealed weapons. He saw the nervous glances, the forced smiles, the predators waiting to strike. Outside, the fleets moved openly now. Massive cruisers spread their wings, their energy cores glowing like suns. Their cannons began to hum, targeting systems locking silently onto the human ships. Shadows of betrayal filled the void, surrounding the station in a cage of firepower. Inside the chamber, the council speaker raised his hands. "Let us seal this day with honor. Let us end this war," he declared. But even as his voice rang out, hidden doors in the walls slid open. Alien soldiers poured out, their armor glinting, their weapons ready. They formed a circle around the humans, their eyes filled with cold hatred. Ramos reached for his sidearm, but Haley lifted one hand slightly, a signal, calm and steady. Not yet. The aliens thought the humans were trapped, cornered with no escape. But Hale's calm smile carried a different message, one only his people understood. Humanity was never without options. Suddenly, the lights dimmed across the station. Emergency sirens wailed, red glow flooding the chamber. The alien fleets outside fully activated their weapons. The trap was revealed in its full horror. The peace accord was nothing more than bait, a theater of lies to lure humanity into slaughter. Alien leaders hissed and shouted. Their soldiers raised their rifles, ready to strike. The crowd of delegates screamed, fear and confusion filling the air. But amidst the chaos, the humans stood still, unshaken. Their silence burned like a blade sharper than any weapon. Hale's voice broke through the noise, cold and unwavering. "So this is your peace, betrayal dressed as honor." The words cut through the chamber, silencing even the bravest of liars. Alien leaders glared, some smirked with triumph. They thought the humans had no choice but to surrender. Yet far beyond the station, humanity's answer was already prepared. Hidden fleets uncloaked from the darkness, human warships emerging like ghosts. Their hulls glowed with power, weapons bristling, shields strong. They had been waiting, patient, watching. And now, the hunters revealed themselves aboard the human flagship. Captain Arden gave the order. Target their main batteries, prepare to strike on. Ambassador's command. Crew members nodded, their hands firm, their eyes fierce. They had known this would happen, and they had sworn to be ready. Back in the chamber, alien soldiers tightened their circle. One delegate sneered, "You are finished, humans. Your arrogance ends here." But Hale only leaned forward, his voice steady as stone. "No, this is where your arrogance ends." With a subtle gesture, he tapped his wrist comm, and in the vastness of space, the first human cannons fired. Beams of light tore through alien formations. Ships shattered in fire. The void exploded with war. Betrayal answered by overwhelming force. Inside, the station shook violently, alarms blaring, walls trembling, alien soldiers staggered, fear flashing in their eyes. The humans moved as one, weapons drawn, precise, unstoppable. Ramos fired the first shot, striking down a guard before he could even raise his rifle. The chamber erupted into chaos. The trap was revealed, but it was no longer humanity that was cornered. It was the betrayers who now faced the fury they had tried to summon. And as fire raged outside and steel clashed inside, the galaxy realized the truth. Humanity had walked into the trap with eyes wide open, and they had come armed with firepower enough to turn betrayal into ruin. The chamber shook as explosions echoed through the walls. Outside, the void burned with light as human cannons split alien fleets apart. Ships that had once circled like vultures now scattered in panic, their formations collapsing. The trap had been sprung, but it was humanity who struck first. Ambassador Hale stood tall in the chaos, his voice cutting through the screams. "Hold the line. Protect the envoys," he commanded. Human soldiers moved with perfect precision, forming a wall around their delegation. Alien guards rushed forward. But every movement was met with human fire. Ramos fired burst after burst, each shot landing with deadly accuracy. The air filled with smoke. The chamber's lights flickered under the storm of battle above the station. The human fleet unleashed its fury. The flagship Valiant Dawn fired its railguns, massive rounds tearing through enemy hulls. Torpedoes streaked across the void, detonating against shields that cracked like glass. Alien admirals shouted orders, but panic spread through their lines. They had expected helpless prey, not a predator already prepared for war. On the council station, alien delegates screamed and fled. Some tried to escape through hidden tunnels, others begged for mercy. But the humans moved with calm focus, securing their leaders and pushing forward. Ramos covered Hale as they advanced, their path lit by the fire of human rifles. Alien soldiers fought back with desperation, but their strikes lacked unity. They were many species, many armies, but they were not one. Humanity fought as one, every soldier tied together by trust and training. Outside, a massive alien dreadnought powered its main cannon. Its glow lit up the station like a second sun. Alien commanders roared in triumph, believing one blast could end humanity's resistance. But on the valiant dawn, Captain Arden's eyes narrowed. "Fire all batteries, bring it down," he ordered. Railguns, lasers, and missiles converged in a storm of destruction. The dreadnought's cannon fired once, the beam tearing across space, but before it could strike its target, the human barrage ripped the dreadnought apart. Its explosion lit the void, a burning reminder that betrayal carried a price. Inside the chamber, Ramos grabbed Hale's arm. "Sir, they are trying to cut us off from the docks." Hale nodded, calm even as chaos thundered around him. "Then we carve a path. Humanity walks out on its own terms." With a signal, the soldiers advanced, pushing through the tightening ring of alien guards. Their formation was unbreakable. Every step forward marked by discipline and fire. The station's walls trembled as Titu. Battle outside grew fiercer. Alien fleets threw everything they had into the fight, desperate to overwhelm the humans. But every strike was met with equal force. Every ambush met with a counter. The humans had studied betrayal. They had expected lies, and now they turned that expectation into power. Whispers spread across alien comms. How did they know? Why were they ready? We cannot break them. Fear spread faster than fire. Whole squadrons faltered. Some ships even broke formation and fled. For the first time, the galaxy saw not a desperate species clinging to survival, but a force of iron will, a predator that had walked willingly into the lion's den. In the chamber, Ramos's rifle clicked empty. He reloaded fast, breath heavy, sweat burning his eyes. But when he looked around at his squad, he saw the same determination. Every human fought not only for survival, but to send a message. Betrayal would never shackle them. Instead, it would ignite their fury. Finally, Hale and his escort reached the inner docking bay. Beyond the sealed doors, their ships waited, already tearing through enemy lines. Alien soldiers tried to block the path, but the humans pressed forward with unstoppable force. Grenades thundered, rifles blazed, blades clashed in close quarters. But one by one, the enemy fell. Ramos kicked the last guard aside, his chest heaving, his rifle still hot. The doors opened, revealing the escape corridor lit by fire from the docking bay. Hale stepped forward, his voice steady as the stars. "Let them remember this day. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not break." His words carried like thunder through the comms, reaching every human ship. The soldiers cheered, their voices rising even as battle still raged. It was not victory yet, but it was no longer betrayal either. It was war, and humanity had seized the first blow. Outside, the human fleet surged forward. Alien formations collapsed under the relentless assault. Ships burned, admirals screamed, the carefully crossed fitted trap turned into a grave, and above it all, the humans pressed their advantage. The galaxy would never forget this day, the day betrayal met firepower, the day humanity struck back. The docking bay roared with fire as the humans pushed forward, their boots pounded across the steel floor, rifles flashing with precision fire. Alien soldiers fought with rage, but every charge shattered against human discipline step by step. The path to the shuttles cleared. Though the air was thick with smoke and blood, Lieutenant Ramos led the front line, his eyes sharp, his movements fast. He fired, reloaded, moved, never slowing, never faltering. His squad mirrored his pace, every shot placed with deadly accuracy. The aliens had numbers, but the humans had unity, and that unity tore holes through the chaos. Behind them, Ambassador Hale walked steady, calm even in the storm. His voice echoed through comms. "Hold formation. Remember who you fight for. Earth watches through you." Those words carried into the hearts of every soldier. They were not only fighting to survive, they were fighting to prove that humanity would never bow to betrayal. Outside, the void was a storm of fire. Alien fleets raged with desperate fury, their ships charging, their cannons blazing. But human warships held their ground, their formations tight, their weapons precise. The valiant Dawn tore through enemy cruisers, its rail guns splitting ships apart like paper. But even as victories rose, the cost grew heavy. One by one, human ships fell under overwhelming numbers. A destroyer caught in crossfire exploded into a burst of light. Its crew gave their last breath so the fleet could advance. Inside the flagship, Captain Arden's jaw tightened. "They bleed us, but we bleed them harder," he said, his voice like steel. The tide shifted as smaller alien factions began to falter. Some ships broke formation, retreating from the slaughter. Others questioned their leaders, fear cracking through their discipline. Whispers of regret spread across their channels. This was not peace. We were tricked into a trap of our own making, but humanity pressed on, relentless, unstoppable. Back in the docking bay, the humans faced their darkest moment. A massive alien war mech crashed through the walls, its armor glowing with energy. Its cannons lit up the bay, forcing the humans to scatter for cover. Ramos rolled behind a crate, firing bursts that barely scratched the machine. It advanced, crushing soldiers under its massive feet. Panic rippled, but Hale's voice cut through the chaos. "Focus fire, bring it down!" Grenades arced through the air, detonating against its shields. Rifles burned with endless fire. But still the mech advanced. Then Captain Dreyer, a veteran with silver hair and sharp eyes, stepped forward. His rifle hung empty, but his hands held a plasma charge. "Fall back," he shouted, his voice full of final resolve. Before anyone could stop him, he rushed forward, dodging blasts, weaving through fire. The mech turned, its cannons aiming at him, but it was too late. Dreyer slammed the charge into its chest, his final roar echoing across the bay. The explosion tore the machine apart, ripping it into flaming shards. The blast consumed Dreyer, his body lost in the fire. Silence followed, broken only by the ringing of steel. The humans stared for a breath, grief and rage colliding in their hearts. Then Ramos lifted his rifle, his voice breaking but strong. "For Dreyer, for Earth," he shouted. The soldiers roared back, their fury igniting like fire. Their next volley cut through the enemy with unstoppable force. Outside, the fleet surged with the same fire. When news of Dreyer's sacrifice reached the comms, every ship fought harder. Alien dreadnoughts fell. Cruisers broke apart. The betrayal that was meant to end humanity now turned into the doom of their enemies. In the council chamber above, alien leaders watched the battle collapse. Their voices shook with fear. They should have been crushed. Why do they not fall? But the answer was clear. Humanity did not fight like others. They fought with heart, with unity, with a fire that sacrifice only made stronger. At last, the humans secured the docking bay. Hale stepped onto the ramp of the shuttle, smoke swirling around him. His face was calm, but his voice carried the weight of steel. They wanted peace to be a chain. Instead, we broke the chain and forged fire. His soldiers boarded, their eyes burning with grief and resolve. This was not the end. This was the turning tide, and as their shuttles lifted into the burning void, alien fleets realized too late what they had awakened. Betrayal had not ended humanity. It had unleashed them. The human shuttles rose from the burning docking bay, their engines cutting through smoke and fire. Alien soldiers tried one last desperate push, but human rifles answered with precision. Every bullet, every blast, carried the weight of Dreyer's sacrifice, and as the last guard fell, the shuttles broke free into the void. Outside, the battlefield stretched like an ocean of flames. Alien fleets burned in every direction, ships twisting, shattering, collapsing under human fire. Human warships moved in deadly harmony, their formations tight, their weapons exact. For every vessel they lost, they destroyed 3 more of the enemy, and slowly, the trap that had been built to crush them turned into a grave for those who set it. The Galaxy Council's leaders screamed orders, their voices cracking with fear. Their grand alliance began to fracture, their fleets falling apart as panic spread. One species abandoned the battle entirely, their ships jumping into hyperspace. Another turned on their supposed allies, desperate to escape destruction. The council chamber filled with chaos, delegates shouting, their unis. Tie broken, they had thought humanity would be weak, but now they trembled, wondering if they had awakened something unstoppable. On the valiant dawn, Captain Arden stood firm, his face lit by the glow of burning enemy ships. Reports came in of victories across the field, but also losses. Human destroyers sacrificed themselves to shield the flagships. Fighters burned out their engines, ramming enemy cruisers to save the fleet. Every sacrifice fueled the fire. Every loss turned into rage, and Arden whispered under his breath, "The galaxy will remember what happens when humanity is betrayed." Ambassador Hale's shuttle docked with the flagship. The soldiers stepped out, smoke clinging to their armor, their faces marked by grief and fire. Hale walked through the command deck, his calm eyes meeting every officer. He spoke not loudly, but with words that cut through the noise. "They wanted to make us fear them, but now they fear us." The crew straightened, their voices rising in unison. They had not only survived the trap, they had turned it into victory, but outside the battle still raged, and the price of betrayal was still being written in fire. Whispers spread across the stars faster than the battle itself. Alien comms carried fragments of horror. The humans were ready. They knew our plan. They came with fire. Those whispers grew into fear, and soon, across distant systems, entire colonies trembled. The myth of human ferocity became truth, from warlords to empires. Every leader now asked themselves, if humanity could survive betrayal at the hands of the entire council, what else were they capable of? In the council chamber, the speaker slammed his claws against the table. "This cannot be," he shouted. "They should have been crushed." But another delegate, eyes wide with terror, whispered, "No, we should have known. Humans never walk unprepared." And in that whisper, truth spread like poison. Their fear was no longer hidden. It consumed them. On the battlefield, one final wave of alien ships tried to rally. Massive carriers launched swarms of fighters, their numbers blackening the stars. But humanity's response was swift. Missile barrages cut through the swarms. Railguns shredded their carriers. And when the dust cleared, human ships still held their ground. Their banners of Earth still burned in the darkness. Unbroken, Lieutenant Ramos stood on the deck, his armor scorched, his rifle heavy. He looked out at the stars filled with wreckage, his heart pounding. He had seen betrayal, sacrifice, and fury all in one day. But more than anything, he saw the truth. The galaxy had made a mistake, a terrible one. They had thought humans could be fooled, trapped, broken, but instead, they had revealed the one thing no empire could stop, the unyielding fire of humanity. Fear spread faster than the flames of battle, from one star to another. From one empire to the next, the message was clear. The peace accord was dead, the council's lies exposed, and humanity, once underestimated, now stood as a force no one could ignore. The galaxy trembled, not because humanity sought war, but because betrayal had shown what humanity would do to survive. And deep in their hearts, every species wondered, if this was what humans did when trapped, what would they do when they chose to strike first? The battlefield drifted silent now, the fires of war glowing against the stars. Wreckage floated across the void, broken pieces of fleets that once thought themselves invincible. Human warships held formation, their banners unburned, their engines steady, and the galaxy looked upon them with fear. Aboard the valiant Dawn, the command deck was quiet. Officers moved with precision, but their eyes carried the weight of sacrifice. Names of the lost filled the air, whispered with sorrow. Yet in that sorrow there was no despair, only iron resolve. Ambassador Hale stood at the center, his voice calm and strong. They thought betrayal would break us, but instead, betrayal united us. The words traveled through every ship, reaching every soldier, every survivor. The humans stood straighter, their hearts burning brighter. In the council chamber, alien leaders cowered, their voices cracked as they argued, blaming each other. Some demanded surrender, others begged for escape, but none could deny the truth burning outside their windows. The trap had failed, and humanity had turned it into a weapon. A transmission cut through the chamber. Hale's face appeared, cold, steady, unshaken. "You spoke of peace while you prepared betrayal," he said, "and now you will face the price of your lies." The chamber fell silent, fear thick in the air. Every delegate felt the weight of his words, sharper than any blade. Outside, human fleets closed in, their weapons still glowing. They did not fire, not yet. But their silence was more terrifying than war. It was the silence of judgment, the silence of a predator who chooses when to strike. Hale continued, his tone colder. "Humanity does not seek chains disguised as peace. If you wish peace with us, it will be peace built on truth, but those who betrayed us will pay with surrender or with fire." The words struck like thunder. Some alien leaders broke instantly, offering unconditional surrender. Others tried to resist, but their fleets were already ash and dust. The Council fractured, its unity shattered beyond repair. On the valiant dawn, Captain Arden turned to his crew. "Mark the systems of those who plotted this ambush," he ordered. "Let them know humanity remembers." The officers nodded, their hands moving across consoles. The betrayers would never escape the shadow of their choice. Ramos stood at the observation deck, his eyes scanning the stars. He thought of Dreyer, of the soldiers who had fallen. Their sacrifice had bought this moment, a moment where humanity stood not as prey but as judge, and he whispered to himself, "They will never forget what happens when you betray humans." Whispers spread faster than light on distant colonies, on hidden stations, in the halls of empires. Everyone heard the same story. The peace accord was a trap, but the trap had failed because the humans had come armed, and the galaxy trembled at what that meant. Yet even in victory, humanity chose restraint. They did not slaughter every enemy. They demanded truth, they demanded surrender, they demanded respect, and that choice echoed louder than fire. For in the end, the galaxy saw not only the fury of humans, but also their discipline, their unity, their refusal to kneel or to conquer blindly. That combination was more terrifying than weapons. It was power shaped by will. As the fleets turned back toward Earth, wreckage still burning behind them, the galaxy knew this day would never be forgotten. The day betrayal became ruin, the day peace became fire, the day humanity wrote its name in the stars, unbroken and unafraid. And in the silence that followed, one truth remained. The price of betrayal was no longer measured in lies or schemes. It was measured in the fire of humanity, a fire the galaxy would never dare to test again.